Let's talk a little bit about occupational wellness. Now, this is not considered one of the core dimensions of wellness, but because it goes both ways, your overall health and wellness contributes to the productivity of your occupation, and your occupation can contribute to the overall productivity of your overall health and wellness. So it kind of goes both ways, and so for those reasons, it is considered one of those areas in the dimensions of wellness that needs to be addressed. So consider your ideal job or your career. Now, some people will define these differently. Some people will say your job is a temporary setting, something that you're looking to do just to make some money. And then others will say your career is something long lasting, something you can see yourself doing until retirement age. But we're going to use them synonymously. So think about some of the things that you ultimately want to do. What are those descriptions and duties? What are you ultimately responsible for in that particular job situation, your ideal career setting? Think about the income that ideal career provides for you. Is that income sufficient enough to pay back any debt that you currently have? Is that sufficient enough to maintain your comfortable level of lifestyle that you're interested in living, depending upon where you're living? If you're going to rent for a while, if you want to save up for a house, how is that income going to contribute to that? There are lots of things to consider when it comes to that income, but some people will say, and I'm one of those that advocate for doing something you love rather than for the financial reimbursement that it provides. Because if you're doing something that you really are passionate about, that you really enjoy doing, then it really doesn't matter what your income is, because you're going to be happy. If you're working just for the income, having a large income can be great, but the stresses and the worries and the problems on that job may be overbearing and kind of overshadow the income that you have. And so those are just some of the things to think about. What hours would you like to work? And what hours does that ideal job or career that you have in mind require of you? For example, I worked in Los Angeles County probation departments for quite some time, several years. And in that job, initially, it was an 8-hour-a-day job. You did your 8 hours and you went home. But as you become promoted, it eventually increases the responsibility, and I find myself working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was on call, all the time. That was too much for me. And so although the work hours initially were okay, they extended and they became something that I did not want to continue to do. So I looked for other employment. So your work hours may vary. If there's something that you can see yourself doing 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day sometimes, and you're comfortable with that, great. If you're not too comfortable with that, you might want to think about how can you make that a little bit more flexible. Is there a different career path or maybe a similar job duty or description that does not require so much of you? And are you willing to put in that many hours? The benefits, oftentimes as we're younger, the benefits don't really make much of a difference as long as we have some of those benefits, because younger people are typically, cared for by their parents still. And even once they kind of fly the nest, so to speak, and they're no longer dependent upon their parents, benefits really aren't that much of a factor because they're young, they're healthy, they don't see themselves getting sick often. But this can be huge later on down the line. Going into the teaching field, there are some school districts that if you go into it and you serve so many years and you're ready to retire, you can still have lifetime benefits. And so this is something to think about as well. Vacation time. How much time do you have off? What is the vacation package in comparison to the hours worked? In the teaching profession, we know that we have all the weekends off, we have all the holidays off, we have time for summer off, we have these breaks during the year. And that's attractive to a lot of people, but it's attractive for the wrong reasons. Some people in the teaching profession want to go in there for those reasons, not necessarily to teach and for the love of kids. And so we see a problem in that profession because of that. People aren't there for the right reasons. They're there for the extrinsic benefits, which is, not necessarily a problem in any other setting. But when you're dealing with the lives of children and the knowledge of children, and you're provided a service to those kids, then it's important that you are there and you care and you demonstrate that. And so think about how much time you have off to relax, to unwind, just to rejuvenate yourself. All of these things are factors when you're considering your ideal job or career. And so we reach a point when we may be able to obtain that ideal job or career. And then we look at the responsibilities that it entails, and sometimes we don't necessarily want to accept all those responsibilities. But think about your ideal job, think about the responsibilities that you need to get that job. What kind of experience do you need, and what are you willing to do? Are you willing to intern? Are you willing to work unpaid? Are you willing to volunteer in order to get that job career? How much time are you willing to put into personal training or education in order to get that job or that career or that position? Think about the level of education that you may have. How much school do you actually need in order to obtain that particular job or that particular career? Some people want to go into business for themselves, and that's great, but how much experience do you need to start your business? Do you have that experience? Are you willing to continue to educate yourself? Because even if you open your own business, there's still a level of ongoing education that you need to maintain. On the job conduct, is there a particular code of ethics or moral conduct that you need to perform your job duties or that's expected of you on a particular job? Customer service, for example, you need to have a particular level of social skills, or you should. There's some companies that provide horrible customer service, but you need to have that in order to maintain a particular job or particular career that you're going into. And then how do you evaluate the effectiveness of yourself, if you're self-employed, the effectiveness of employees, and who determines that? How often does that happen? And is that something that's extremely stressful? Is the evaluation a make or break deal? Is it something where if you get a poor evaluation, then you're terminated? Or if it's something that, based on your evaluations, there's areas that you may need further education on and additional support. So all those things should be considered when you're thinking about a job or a career setting. And so obtaining a job is one thing, but maintaining that job is another thing. And when we're thinking about occupational wellness, we want to be able to consider all of the possibilities. We want to think about our strengths, personally, our weaknesses, the things that we're passionate about, whether or not we have a hobby, how effective we think we can be on that particular job, what motivates us to perform that job. Are we willing to deal with the stresses on a regular basis that the employment brings to us? And if we're not, we might want to branch out and think about other possibilities that may be similar or along the same lines of those things. And so part of occupational wellness is really not pigeonholing yourself into one particular situation. It goes back to kind of being liberally educated. You want to know a little bit about a lot of different things because that way you can branch off and make yourself more marketable. Select a career that's rewarding. And I mentioned before about the differences between working for passion and working for money. And that's not always rewarding to work for the money, but if you're working for something and you feel passionate about it, then that is rewarding and gratifying in itself. Also, utilizing your strengths. Are the strengths that you possess, that you've may probably identified for yourself, going to be utilized on the job that you're interested in? Oftentimes, if our strengths or our gifts are not being put into effect and not being utilized for any particular situation, we not only tend to lose those, but we also lose productivity, and it becomes more of a burden to perform certain duties if they're not aligned with our gifts and our strengths. Balancing the duties and leisure time. Thinking about occupational wellness, this is one of the reasons why you want to think about the vacation time. We all need a break. We all need to rejuvenate ourselves. We all need to refresh and just take a step back because our jobs and our careers can be extremely consuming. And so thinking about the things that you like to do and whether or not your job or career provides an opportunity for those things to continue to be done, whether it's taking a break throughout the day, exercising, working out, traveling, any of those things that you really like to do during your leisure time or recreational time, those things need to be continually done or weaved into your work setting, because if they're not, then you begin to get frustrated on the job. And oftentimes that frustration is evident through how productive and how effective you are on that job. Understanding and coping with workplace stress. There are going to be people, responsibilities, duties, maybe some travel involved. All of these things require a lot of your time, a lot of your effort, a lot of your attention, and they are high stress expectations. Understanding that you're going into a particular situation and understanding the different types of stressors that there are within that profession are extremely important, because then you're better to provide some type of management tool for yourself going into those situations. How are you going to develop and maintain healthy coworker relationships? Is that something that you're expected to do? Some people say, I know I'm not good at these social skill things, and I know I'm not good working with other people. I need a career, I need a job in which I'm pretty much my own boss, or I can work with a lot of autonomy, or I don't have to have a lot of interaction with other people. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes people need to have that social interaction, but developing those healthy coworker relationships is important because that can help motivate you on the job. It can help make you more productive, encourage you, make you feel that you are not alone in any particular situation. And it's a lot easier to work when you have someone else alongside of you, or someone else who, experiences the same things that you're experiencing on the job. Aligning your duties with personal values and beliefs. For example, if you are going into teaching early childhood education and you have a biblical foundation, you may find that some of the expectations you have on the job is to teach things such as alternative lifestyles, which may differ from your own personal feelings. You may have to address the fact that a lot of programs are expecting and being funded to remove the child from their parents as soon as possible. And so we see a lot of preschool programs receiving a lot of funding, when in turn your personal feeling may be the child is better off with their parent as long as possible, rather than rushing them into a school system. And so some of those things may not be aligned with your personal values and beliefs, and that's going to create some conflict on the job. That's going to develop a lot of frustration. And so you're expected to do one thing, but your personal beliefs are convicting you. And that's huge in on-the-job performance. And so that's something else to think about when it comes to occupational wellness. Thinking about those intrinsic versus the extrinsic rewards or benefits that the job provides. Are you doing this for yourself? Are you doing it for your own personal gratification? Are you providing a service because there is some sense of personal satisfaction in helping others or serving others? Or are you doing it because the pay is good? Are you doing it because you have a lot of time off? Are you doing it because the benefits are great? All of those things need to be weighed, because one will eventually outweigh the other, and you'll find yourself in this conflict and you'll find yourself frustrated on the job. But regardless of all of those things that you take into consideration when thinking about your ideal job or career, basically your personal attitude will make or break you on a particular job. It will either make you successful or it will make you miserable and struggle in any situation, whether you work for someone else or you work for yourself. And so in occupational wellness, research will support this, that your attitude about anything that you are required to do on the job is going to affect your productivity and your success. So, for example, we like to complain. We like to share with people our frustrations, and we like to talk about things that are inconvenient for us. But that complaining doesn't really do anything as it relates to your expectations, your performance, the outcome that is required of you. And so complaining really solves nothing. Sometimes people say it makes me feel better to vent and to complain. Well, that's true, but how often are you doing it? Are you making it a habit to complain about things that are outside of your control? Is that habit or habitual complaining going to be something that's chronic? And other people don't really want to hear you consistently be unhappy about your job. Sharing some stresses and problems about a particular job situation is different than always complaining and just really griping about some of the expectations and responsibilities that you have. But it solves nothing. You still have to get the work done. Being positive, having a positive outlook, an optimistic outlook, helps to develop confidence on the job, and it provides a sense of efficiency on the job. People who are more positive about their expectations about their job are a lot more productive. And it also promotes just a healthy environment because others around you are motivated by your own positivity. Pessimism, which is all that consistent negative thinking, is going to lead to a lack of motivation, and it's going to lead to some procrastination. It's going to eventually lead to poor productivity, a lot of work not getting done. It contributes to a poor work ethic and mindset. Values are typically changed when you're consistently pessimistic, and that kind of goes back to complaining. If you're consistently complaining, it's going to develop a pessimistic outlook, and those individuals do find happiness on the job difficult. Your attitude is infectious, whether it's a negative behavior or a positive behavior. It is going to be infectious with other people around you. Consistently complaining about something is going to put that in the ear of other people, and they're going to look negatively on some of the same responsibilities that you have. Being positive is just the opposite. So trying not to be so negative and harsh, because that's just going to stir conflict, is going to create more stress in your life, and is going to cause others to think negatively as well. And so being a positive thinker, looking at the bright side of things, looking at the learning aspect of things rather than looking at it from a stressful or problematic, complaining point of view, um, really addresses your focus and your ability to be productive on the job. And so focusing on your responsibilities is going to be difficult based on your outlook. So if you have a negative outlook, you're going to lose focus. You're not going to be able to effectively address your responsibility and task on the job as much as you would if you were overall positive or optimistic. And then your overall health. And it goes both ways. And here we start to see another link between all the different dimensions of wellness, how our physical health is affected and how that affects our productivity, how our mental health and our social health, all of those things will contribute to a more productive individual. However, if your job situation is high stress and you find yourself complaining a lot and you have this negative attitude about it, it will affect your overall stress levels. It will affect your overall health. Individuals have complained of having chronic headaches, inability to sleep. They're always worried. They're stressed. Their blood pressure increases. And so all of these things are indications of someone who is extremely unhappy with their job or unsatisfied with their job. So being able to balance all of this information out is important when thinking about your ultimate or your ideal job or career. So some other questions to ask yourself, and this is just a quick 10-point checklist to just go down this list. How happy are you with your career choice? Are you satisfied? Are you happy? What makes you happy? These are some of the things that we need to continually reflect on, especially when times get difficult. Are you looking forward to work? Do you wake up in the mornings, and mainly on Monday mornings after a nice weekend, do you roll out of bed just griping, complaining, wishing you didn't have to go into work that Tuesday or that Monday? If that was the case, it's going to be the same no matter what day you get up and have to go to work, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. People do it all the time. So do you look forward to work, thinking about that? If the answer is no to that, you may want to reconsider your occupational selection. Are your responsibilities or duties consistent with your values? Mentioned that a little bit. Can you balance the work with your personal activities? Are you finding yourself sacrificing some of the things that you did before? You may have to do that, and you may need to accept the fact that your work-related responsibilities are going to need to outweigh some of your personal hobbies and enjoyments that you previously participated in before you got into an employment situation. Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with that? Do you have, or do you think you have considerable control or freedom at work? Are you free to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes? Or are you feeling stressed and pressured that if you make a mistake, then you're going to be looked at negatively? It's going to go as a negative mark on your record. It's going to contribute to your being terminated. Those things make a huge difference in how effective you are on the job. And so you're not always worried, and you're more relaxed because you know that there's opportunities for growth and improvement. Does your work give you a feeling of satisfaction? Do you leave your job thinking that you made a difference? And these things lead to increased productivity and positivity in the workplace. Are there opportunities for personal growth and professional growth? Can you move up a ladder? Can you increase your salary? Will you get a raise? What kind of things weigh into that? If you find yourself in a position where you know that there is no opportunity for increase, or there are no clear lines explained to you as to how you can achieve a raise, then sometimes that's going to contribute to more frustration because you're going to feel yourself working over and over and over again, knowing that you're not going to get a raise, and that's going to decrease your productivity and happiness also. Do you feel as if you make a contribution or a difference on the job? And that kind of goes back to that personal feeling of satisfaction. Does your job contribute to your overall well-being? Do you still feel a sense of being healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, overall on your job? Or is it stressful to the point where you're fatigued, you're tired, all you want to do is sleep, you don't want to talk about it, you're finding your focus being affected, you're unable to multitask and do all those things? Sometimes that stress level will affect not only your job performance, but your personal performance and happiness as well. And are there intrinsic as well as extrinsic rewards and benefits? Can you balance those things out? So all of these are just some questions to ask yourself as it relates to your job, whether it be your current job or your ideal job situation. Now, getting a job is one thing, maintaining that job is another thing. Employers will say time and time again they would rather take someone who is employable or who has what we call job skills over someone who has technical skills, because individuals who always have technical skills don't always have the job skills. They may know the particular responsibilities and the ins and outs of the daily duties, but because they lack some of these other job skills, employers would prefer not to have them because you can always learn the job skills on the job. So, in occupational wellness, thinking about what helps you get and maintain a job, number one, individuals seem to not understand the importance of punctuality on certain jobs. There's a certain level of expectation that seems to, after generation, be passed down where individuals think it's okay just to show up right on time or a little bit late, and use excuses rather than thinking about how that is reflected in them. I was raised on what we call the Vince Lombardi rules. My parents always told me, if you're on time, you're 15 minutes late, and that was something that Vince Lombardi said. And it stuck with me throughout the rest of my life. Even today, I just cannot stand being on time. So anytime I have a required meeting or something that I have to be to, I'm always there 15 minutes early regardless. And some people look at me like I'm crazy and like, you know what you can get done in that 15 minutes, just take your time. But that's just how I'm wired. I need to be there on time. And that's a job skill that some people neglect. Also, being able to communicate. And communication on the job goes more than just social communication. It involves being able to listen and understand what is being asked of you. It's a sense of being able to explain things verbally on your own, reiterating what is being asked of you and communicating that back to someone else just for confirmation. It's the ability to understand written information, being able to interpret what that written information is. And so communication is key. It's extremely vital in a lot of different settings and situations on the job. Your professionalism, whether it be the dress, your attire, the way you look, the way you carry yourself, cleanliness goes a long way. There are certain levels of expectations when it comes to professionalism with different types of jobs. There are some jobs where people strive to work at Google, which unless you are a computer coder or a genius, you're not likely to get a job there. But if you do have a job there, they have this open kind of professionalism where you can come in pajamas. You can just roll out of bed and basically go to work because you're pretty much set in a cubicle all day. And you're not necessarily interacting, and they want to set up an environment that's comfortable to you. And so they have this very laxed professional setting where other jobs expect you to have a shirt and tie, very formal dress. Women need to wear, skirts, and so some of those things need to be considered when it comes to the job that you need to perform that's required of you. And if you are uncomfortable with the professional attire or expectations on the job, you're going to find yourself in a situation of being resentful towards that job. What are your responsibilities? Are you a responsible person? Are you a trustworthy person? How do we know this? How can we verify this? Employers want to know that you are trustworthy, that you are responsible, and oftentimes this can be something that is demonstrated on the job over a period of time after evaluation, being entrusted with keys, whether it be money, finances. Are you responsible for maintaining those things? And so demonstrating your responsibility and demonstrating your trustworthiness on the job is huge. It may not always go recognized, noticed, and appreciated, but or maybe they don't share that with you, but it is definitely recognized and appreciated by a lot of employers. Problem-solving skills. Are you able to look at an issue and think through it and work towards it? If you don't know, are you able to find the answers? Are you able to investigate? And I find this to be a huge problem, especially with my undergraduate students today. I mean, overwhelmingly, if it's something that's a little bit challenging for them, or if they don't have specific clear guidelines, they tend to give up and use that as an excuse not to do something. For an example, I would give students a link to a particular article or an assignment or some instructions. Well, if the link is broken and the link isn't working, they still know what the expectations are, but because that link that I provided to them is incorrect or it's not properly working or it's broken, they don't try. They don't go any further than that. They just stop, rather than taking the time and looking and say, well, maybe there is another website, another link, some other information I can look to find the same information. We don't do that anymore. We want everything provided for us. And so being able to problem solve means being able to go above and beyond the basic expectations of a duty or responsibility. Ability to multitask. Now, technically, we really lack the ability to effectively multitask, meaning we can't give 100% to multiple things. Something is going to take 80%, something's going to take 20%. We may be able to give 50% to one thing, 50% to another thing, but we can't do multiple things at 100% capacity. But being able to balance that out and prioritize is important when it comes to multitasking. And so being able to do this is a huge skill that makes you marketable. Your enthusiasm, taking that initiative, being excited about going to work, having that positive outlook and attitude, that is huge when it comes to recognizing who's going to receive a raise, who's going to be promoted. Those things can't really be taught. It's something that's inherent within us, and those are those intrinsic qualities and traits that we have that's going to make any job situation beneficial for not only us, but whomever we're working for, whatever our responsibilities are. It's going to make us more productive. And so individuals who own businesses, who hire people, love to see enthusiastic employees. Having organizational skills, of course, goes without explaining. We need to be able to organize, like I mentioned before, prioritize the task to address whatever needs come our way. Being honest, demonstrating we have a sense of integrity, being able to demonstrate we have a sense of morality and understanding those issues can oftentimes, for different situations, either make or break us. If we know something's wrong is happening in a particular work situation, not saying anything about it is just as bad as participating in whatever it is happening wrong. Now, sometimes saying something about it may cause for termination for us, but being able to do that demonstrates that we have a high level of moral foundation, moral upbringing that is really lost in today's society, in my point of view. And then your willingness to learn is extremely key. How willing are you to learn different things to make yourself more marketable, to make yourself more knowledgeable, to be more beneficial in whatever it is that you're doing? Sometimes we say, you know what, just tell me what I need to do for my particular responsibilities and situations. But having that willingness to learn about multiple things and demonstrate that learning and apply some of those skills that you're learning is also extremely important when it comes to occupational wellness, because it makes you more marketable. It makes you a more enjoyable employee. And so this chart basically just kind of represents the differences in how employers respond to individuals who have what we call a negative skill set, which is the lack of employability skills, and a positive skill set. Also, whether or not that makes them employable or replaceable. And so if an individual tends to have high value, which means they're employable, they have technical skills as well as the employability skills. We also call them job skills or non-cognitive skills. But individuals who possess that are considered to have high value and very difficult to replace. And those individuals are the ones that employers will seek to help maintain their jobs, to improve, to learn more, and to basically take over a particular business. You can also have high value, which means when you have that high value, you have the technical skills. You may have gone to school, a trade school, to learn a particular skill, but you don't have employability skills. So you lack the ability to understand the professionalism on the job, to be punctual, to be responsible, and you don't maintain those things. You may have high value to that job, but you can easily be replaced. And so employers are always looking for someone who possesses those job skills rather than someone who possesses technical skills and have no job skills. You can also have low value and be difficult to replace, which means you don't have those technical skills. You haven't been trained formally for a particular job duty or responsibility, but you have those employability skills. And so you may have low value initially, but you're still difficult to replace because they know you can learn what those technical skills are. And then there's some people who have low value and are easy to replace. They don't have the technical skills, nor do they have the employability skills. And so those are the ones that tend to be shuffled from one job to another, that are always looking for something that they're not really obtaining, and tend to not have the ability to self-reflect and understand that it may be something within them that's preventing them from moving on or maintaining a job. So I'm just going to present you with some issues I want you to think about. Ethical issues in employment. Do you inform your company or business if you know your supervisor is stealing, even if it's going to cost you your job? So you're in a situation where you may have observed or you may have come to understand that your immediate supervisor or someone who's just kind of over you is stealing from a company. But you know if you go to their boss or the supervisor, maybe the owner of the company, because you are under this supervisor, you're likely to lose your job as well. Do you still go to that owner and explain to them, yes, this person is stealing from you, knowing that you may lose your job? It's a tough situation to be in. And some individuals would probably think about this for a long time. Some will just turn a blind eye to it and let it go. Some will say something. Some will say, you know what, I want to cut also. But regardless, whatever your decision is, try to justify it. Try to explain it from a moral and ethical standpoint. Here's another one. You're hiring an employee whose duties and responsibilities are going to be extremely important to your job situation, to the longevity of your business. The absolute best qualified applicant is a young lady who's pregnant. Do you hire her knowing that, well, there's going to come a time in a moment where she's going to have to take maternity leave and she's not going to be on the job, and so she's not going to be doing the responsibilities, and you're still going to have to find someone to cover her job while she's off? Or do you pass her up and you go on to the next person who's not as qualified, but they're not pregnant and you know they're going to stay there for a period of time? This is another ethical issue that a lot of employers find themselves in. Now, of course, you can't say anything to the prospective applicants as to why you hired or didn't hire someone, but it's a moral issue. It's an ethical issue that you need to consider. Is it okay for employers to check applicants' social media networking sites? And this is a huge one. This is a debate that's been going on since the inception of social media. Should this be a make or break issue? And when you go in to apply for a job, do you have any reservations about that prospective employer looking at your social media? Do you feel okay giving them access to your social media sites, saying, here, take a look, I don't have anything to hide? Or are you hesitant? Chances are, if you're hesitant, you probably have something to hide. Not necessarily always true. It may just be a sense of privacy. You know what? You don't want them to negatively judge you or your job performance based on some of the things that they may see on your social networking site. Besides, when you post on your social media, you know, you're off the clock. It's on your own personal time. And so we have this debate going back and forth where some will say, you know what, that is a good representation of who you are as a person. And if you have anything to hide, then chances are you may not make a good fit for this particular business or company. Again, a very important ethical issue. And then another one that, kind of goes around and comes around, especially for the teaching field. Should employers base their workers' salary on merit pay? Meaning, should you be paid based on your performance on a job? And this has been discussed in the public school setting. And some people are thinking, well, teachers should be paid based on test scores of students. So the teachers who have students that have high test scores should be paid more than the teachers of students who have low test scores. Of course, this really doesn't apply in that situation and is very unfair because students are so flexible. You can have a group of students that are considered, in a GATE class or an advanced class or honors class, and they're going to excel. Those students are really self-motivated, self-initiated. And you have another teacher who has students who, the majority of them are second language learners. Some of them have not been in the school system for a period of time. They have struggles at home. Some of them, spend more time taking care of siblings or house responsibilities. The parents may have a business. There's a lot of things that go into impact whether or not how effective a teacher is. But you think about this in other situations as well, in any other job. Should workers be paid based on their productivity? We see this in sales. People who are in sales do get an extra stipend or a bonus based on the level of units that they sell in comparison to someone else. And so the people who sell more get paid more. Is this okay? Is this an ethical issue? It is an ethical issue, but how do we resolve this? How do we compensate individuals who work extremely hard? And how do we motivate those individuals to continue that hard work in comparison to someone who just comes and does the bare minimum of the same job and the same duties and the same responsibilities? Some people say they should not be getting paid the same, and some will say we need to make some changes and compensate because that should bring up the level of performance of those individuals who aren't doing as well. So all of these are issues that relate to occupational wellness that are typically considered. And so ultimately think about the balance between the intrinsic and extrinsic qualities that you have and that you're reaching for when it comes to being effective on the job. Also understand that obtaining a job is very different than maintaining a job. And so you may have the skills to get a job initially, but do you have the skills to keep that job for a period of time? So this is going to be it. Just kind of dwell on these for a moment and think about these ethical issues in employment. If you have some other ones, I'd like to hear about them. You can share them in the Q&A forum or just post them in one of the discussion forums online. Take care for now, and we will see you online.